You have any idea why they might be doing this? Darren asks Brainan as I see Albert and Peter stopping in the middle of the room to have a discussion. One of their friends, while the little girl is just standing there with her head bowed down. Given that the majority of their targets so far has been mages, Brennan says, we are thinking that they may be taking them to those. Yep, just what I guessed. They've taken those so large black towers coating with ceridium. I don't know if you've seen how they work, but those towers are basically the main source of magical energy to all of the gadgets in the city. From the flying metal carriages to those metal balls roaming the sky, the energy in those towers is coming from all the mages that you see standing on the flying platforms on the side of them. Also from all the mages that are inside the towers. These people work all day to transfer magical energy to the tower, and in return they get paid for their services. But I think Billy Bob wasn't happy with the amount of energy he was getting from voluntary work. He decided to have some of the mages kidnapped so they could work day in and night at the towers without pay. We don't know this for certain, of course, so far it's only speculation on our part. Have we not been to those towers to see if you could find the girl's father and brother there? Darren says. We tried, but those areas are heavily guarded, Brandon says. We would risk too many of our men just to confirm our theory, and then we'd need a whole battalion to actually free the slaves. As cruel as this may sound, there are unfortunately more important things to spend our resources on than fighting a little girl's family. What about the girl's mother? Hardwick says. Do you know what happened to her? Her mother went missing shortly after she began asking the city guards to investigate why her husband and her son had disappeared, Brennan says. She must have insisted a little too much and gotten one of the guards' nerves. Only the gods know whether she may be now, if she's still alive, that is. As I look towards the other end of the hall again, I see Albert and Peter have finished their conversation with their friend, and they're almost about to exit the room with the little girl following close behind. Call after the girl, tell her that we'll find her family. This whole novel has been all about feel-good stuff, so I'm guessing the correct choice is this one, so we'll go with that. Hey Alice, I shout, don't worry, we'll find your family for you. Hearing what I said, the little girl suddenly turns her head towards me with a glimmer of hope in her tired eyes. You really mean it? The girl shouts back in a somewhat hesitant tone. Of course, I say loudly. You can count on us. Sure, we'll bring them all back in no time. The girl gasps and her tears of joy began to flowing from her eyes. Thank you, the girl shouts in a trembling voice. Thank you so much. I promise that I'll do anything to make it up to you. I'll wash your dishes, I'll cook your food and scrub your floors, and it's alright, I tell her. You don't need to do any of that stuff. Just go get some rest, and you look really tired. Little girl nods to me with a faint smile in her eyes as she wipes the tears from her faint smile on her face, not in her eyes, as she wipes the tears from her eyes, and she moves to follow Albert and Peter out of the room until none of them are visible anymore. Barry, I get what you are trying to do. We shouldn't give people false hope like that, Darren says. We aren't even sure where her family is, or if they are still alive, not to mention doing what you promised would mean straying pretty far off course from what we originally came here to accomplish. You sure about that? I say, because the way I see it, once we kill the king, all his forces will be in disarray, and it would become easy for us to infiltrate one of the towers. Not to mention that if we crown one of our allies as the new king, we will be able to order the guards to tell us what they did with the mother. If you ask me, helping the girl should align perfectly with what we originally came here to do. You're making a lot of assumptions, Barry, Darren says, but I suppose you're right in a way. At the very least, we should be able to do more for this girl than the rebels have done so far. Even if we were to only stick to our initial plan, I guess we'll just have to see how it all plays out in the end. Brainan says, so this was why you really came here then, to kill the king of Olander. I'm sure that our king of the underground will be ecstatic when he hears this. Just as we were about to finish our conversation, we see an older man being dragged into the room against his will by two of his comrades while he is desperately pleading them to let him go. After a while, the three of them stop in front of a man guarding an iron door, which has an impressive number of locks on it, the word quarantine written on the big red letters around above it. We've got another one for you, Desmond. One of the younger men says to the guards, open the door. Gotcha, Desmond says as he begins opening the door. Opening the locks one by one. Please, says the older man, I still have 2 hours left. At least let me say goodbye to my son. Your son is away on a mission, old man, says the younger man who spoke earlier. He won't be back until sundown. You will never see him again. But I still have 2 hours, the older man says. You can't do this to me. Don't make this harder for the rest of us, Jack. The other... what is he? I like the fact that... I'm guessing the older man's name is Jack, and he's not just calling him that like Joe Biden does. Don't make this harder for the rest of us, the younger man says. Your life is over, you know this. What difference are 2 more hours going to make? Stop crying and act like a man, will you? It's not like we're doing this because you're enjoying it. Alright, get him inside. Guard says he opens the door. No, 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 Jack shouts as he's being pushed in the quarantine zone by the associate. Once they push him inside, the guards closes the door and then he locks it back up. Let me out, we hear Jack shouting desperately from the other side as he is pounding on the iron gate with his fist. I don't want to die in here. No, let me go. What are you doing? I said let go. You can't do this to me, you can't. The old man's voice is becoming more and more muffled as the men on the inside are dragging him further into the quarantine area, until eventually the voice can no longer be heard anymore and the hallway becomes silent once again. Okay, what the hell was that? Harrick asks Brainan after a few moments of us just staring at the attic door without saying anything. Listen, I know that what this looks like from outsider's perspective. We don't exactly have a lot of options here. Brainan says there's a terrible disease currently plaguing our city, and sometimes the men we send out on missions happen to catch it. We don't know where it is coming from, we don't know what it is, and we have no way of curing it. All we know is that once we get it, there are 3 pink spots that immediately appear on the back of your neck, and then exactly a week after that, you start getting the very first symptoms of the disease, and your illness becomes contagious. And once the sickness really starts to kick in, you're going to get violent coughs, a high fever, and eventually you won't be able to get out of bed anymore. Nobody who contracted the disease has ever managed to live through it. The only thing we can do is to isolate everyone who becomes ill so that we can at least keep our casualties to the minimum. No, Darren says, no, this isn't right. You can't just abandon these people like this. There has to be a way to save them. I'm going in there. No, wait, you're not allowed to. Byron starts to say, but Darren does not listen. Isn't he already hurt? What is he doing? But Darren does not listen to him as he storms right past us, straight for the iron door at a speed that makes it look like he's completely forgotten that he's still in pain from the beating he's taken earlier. I'll go get them, I tell Brainan as I rush to follow Darren. However, I manage to catch up to him. However, Darren calls out to the guard in the front of the iron gate asking for to be allowed inside the quarantine zone. Open the door, please, Darren tells the guard. Then he stops in front of him. I want to have a look inside and see if I can help. Realizing that I'm already too late, I place myself not too far behind Darren and decide to wait and see where their conversation will lead to. Nobody's allowed inside the quarantine zone, says Desmond, the guard says. Especially not outside. Go back to your chair and wait for the king to summon you. There's nothing for you to see here. No, you don't understand, Darren says. I'm a healer. If you let me in, I might find a way to cure them. I know who you are, healer in armor, Desmond says. I know what you've accomplished, but this disease is nothing like that Iknar plague that you are so famous for having cured all by yourself. We have many skilled healers here. All of them said that they haven't seen anything like it before. We already lost 2 of our best healers to this plague before we realized that there was nothing that can be done to stop it. I won't let you waste your life away as well. So you're just going to let them all die in front of your eyes? Dylan says furiously. They're your friends. Don't you dare lecture me, healer, Desmond says, a tone that suggests he's barely able to contain his rage. I've already lost my wife to this disease. I'm about to lose my brother too. In a few days, if I'm telling you that it can't be done, then it can't be done. You're just going to throw your life away for nothing. Don't you get it? There's nothing you can do to save them. It doesn't matter how good of a healer you are. Nobody can achieve the impossible. That doesn't mean that I can't still try, Dylan says, with a very determined look in his eyes. Listen to me, Desmond. When I came here to this tournament, I promised myself that I wouldn't get distracted. I swore that I would focus on my goal of winning the tournament regardless of what would happen, because winning the Magium is what's most important. But to win the Magium, everything else that I couldn't do here would become possible, and I could potentially save tens of thousands of lives in the meantime. That would have normally taken me to save only one. But none of them matters right now. None of it matters, because by the time I'll win the tournament, by the time I finally gain access to the Magium, all of those people behind the door will be long dead. I cannot let that happen. I would not be able to forgive myself if I did. Darren then takes one step forward and he puts both his hands on the guard's shoulder as he looks him straight in the eye. Desmond, please let me in, Darren says. Let me in so I can save your brother. Seems that the rage in Desmond's eyes has disappeared, and now he's giving Darren a long, thoughtful look, probably trying to decide if he should put his trust in him or not. You're insane, healer, Desmond tells Darren after a while as he pushes both his hands away from his shoulders. You are a madman and a fool. Even more of a fool than that idiot Kelrim. The guardian begins opening the locks one by one until he finally done with them. Then he opens the iron door. Do as you wish, but know that you only have 1 week at your disposal. If in 1 week you don't make any progress, you either keep out of our base or we'll lock you in with the rest of them. Don't say I didn't warn you. Thank you, Darren says. I'll make sure not to waste this chance you've given me. Then Darren then turns around to me. Let's go, Barry. Wait, that's not why I followed you here. It's not. Darren